ready for a deep dive. Submarines, volcanoes, journeys to the moon, you name it. We're tackling Jules Verne today.
Still captivates us, doesn't he? Even though we've kind of done those things now, you know? Gone to the depths, flown past the stars, all that.
Right. And we're using these conversations, these back and forths between the philosopher, Michel Serres, and the journalist, what was his name, Jean-Paul Decisse, to figure out why Verne still has this hold on us.
It's fascinating.
It really is. And you know what struck me, what Serres says, is even after a whole life, right, learning, experiencing, he still feels that childlike wonder when he picks up Verne. Do you ever feel that way?
Absolutely. It's like Verne, he got at something timeless about us, about wanting to explore, wanting to understand.
And that's why I think this deep dive is so cool. It's not just, oh, remember 20,000 Leagues, remember Journey to the Center of the Earth. It's what those stories tell us about ourselves.
Exactly. And Serres would say Verne wasn't just telling stories, he was shaping how people thought. He calls it, get this, pedagogical literature. It's like he was a teacher sneaking in through the back door.
Instead of a classroom, it's a fantastical voyage, but with lessons hidden inside. Like sneaking the veggies into the kids' meal. They're having too much fun to notice.
Exactly. Like, think about the Odyssey, right? Serres compares Verne to Homer. It wasn't just the adventure that the young Greeks were devouring. It was the lessons. Courage, resilience, how to face the unknown. Verne does something similar, using these wild journeys to teach about science, the natural world, to get people curious about the universe.
And it was happening at such a crazy time, right? Science was changing faster than ever before. It's almost like Verne, he gave people a way to think about these changes through his stories.
He's this bridge, right,
Yeah.
between what we imagine and what's really out there. And you see it in how his characters change over time. You start with these larger-than-life heroes, like that Michel Strogoff, the most selfless, loyal guy you could imagine. But as Verne, he gets older, his characters get more complicated, more like real people.
Like Captain Nemo. A genius, sure, but there's this darkness about him, this conflict inside that makes him so interesting.
Serres, he calls Nemo a transitional figure, caught between that old kind of hero and, get this, the modern terrorist. It's like he's saying progress isn't simple, it's not always a good thing, there's always a catch.
Which makes you wonder, what even is a hero today? I mean, the world's a lot more complicated than when Verne was writing, right?
That's a good question, and one Verne himself seems to be struggling with, especially if you look at how he writes female characters, which people have a lot to say about that.
It's true. You have these women like Ellen in Journey to the Center of the Earth or Nadia in Michel Strogoff. They're there, but more like these idealized figures, not really part of the action, almost like the unattainable dream. You know.
And this connects to something Serres talks about, the suspense of unfulfilled desire. He thinks that's a huge part of what drives Verne's writing, this wanting, this longing for something just out of reach, whether it's love or knowledge, even a scientific breakthrough.
Which, let's be real, we've all felt that, right? That wanting for something more, that drive to understand ourselves and the world, it's what keeps us going.
It's being human, right? And that desire to understand, that's at the heart of what Serres calls Verne's triple enchantment.
Okay, you got to tell me more about this triple enchantment. It sounds intriguing.
Think about this. You're looking at a mountain range, right? Beautiful, majestic, all that. But then imagine understanding how those mountains got there. The millennia it took, the forces of nature, the whole story written in the rock. That's part of it.
It's like that aha moment, right? When you learn something new and suddenly everything looks different. Like I was reading about how trees talk to each other underground through these fungal networks. And now like a walk in the woods just hits different.
Exactly. And Verne, he was so good at that.
Yeah.
Showing the science behind the beauty. But it's more than that. There's this deeper magic that comes with understanding how things work. And that's where Verne, the storyteller, that's where he really gets you.
Because he takes that science, which can be complicated, and makes it, exciting through the story.
Exactly. Serres, he tells this story about visiting the Auvergne region in France. And he says once he knew a little geology, the whole landscape changed for him. It wasn't just rocks and trees. It was like this history book, volcanic eruptions, ancient seas, all of it right there in front of him.
And that's what Verne did. He made that knowledge into an adventure. You're not just learning about geology. You're right there with Professor Lidenbrock, heading for the center of the Earth.
He makes you want to go on that journey with him. And the funny thing is, so much of what Verne was writing about, these anxieties we have today, he was already exploring them, you know?
Right. He wasn't like blind to the downsides of progress. It's almost like he knew that with every step forward, there's always a shadow side.
Exactly. He tackles some tough stuff, things that might even be more relevant now than back then even.
Rover the Conqueror.
Yeah.
You've got this brilliant inventor, but he's also power-hungry, destructive, or the purchase of the North Pole where they're just going to, like, exploit the Earth for profit.
It's like he's giving us these warnings, right? About technology, about greed, about what happens when we mess with the natural order, things we're still dealing with, climate change, AI, all of it.
It's kind of amazing when you think about it, how he tapped into that. But the thing is, his stories, they're still so readable, even with all that depth.
That's what's so great about Verne. Serres calls it elementarism, I think. He didn't dumb things down, but he got to the core of them, you know. Used language anyone could understand.
Which people mistake that for being simple sometimes. But like Sarah says, there's a lot hidden in that simplicity.
He uses this example, the word bird. Such a simple word, right? But think about how many different kinds of birds there are. Now say hummingbird instead. Suddenly, you have this image in your head, the colors, those tiny wings. Verne knew how to pick the right word, the right detail, to open up a whole world.
So it's about being, like, concise but impactful. Spark the imagination without overloading it.
Exactly. Which, honestly, we could all use a little more of that these days, right? Information overload everywhere you look. Verne reminds us that simple can be powerful, especially with big ideas. But then, where do those ideas go? That's where Serres takes us next, to the idea of places for literature to thrive.
Places for literature, it's like, I don't know, it makes you think about those little spots you find to read, you know, where you can really get lost in a book.
Right, but Serres, he's talking bigger than that. He means those spaces where people can actually talk about books, where that kind of curiosity can take off.
Like a really good book club, where everyone's going back and forth about the ending or what a character meant by something.
Yeah, or museums like that Jules Verne house in Amiens. Yeah. It's not just about the objects, right? Like you're walking into his world, you can practically see him working in his study. It's like stepping into one of his novels.
And those online communities.
Yeah.
People who love Verne from all over, sharing ideas, coming up with theories, even writing their own stories because of him.
It's amazing, like these digital salons, you know, keeping those Vernean ideals going, the exploration, the wonder.
Which brings us back to that feeling, that childlike sense of wonder that Serres was talking about. Like, no matter how much you learn, there's always more out there.
And I think Verne, he gives us permission to hold on to that curiosity, that thirst for knowledge. It's okay to get excited about a giant squid or a trip to the moon, even when the world feels kind of messy.
Because it's that curiosity, that drive to discover, that pushes us forward, right? Makes us ask questions, explore, dream bigger.
And who knows, maybe if we tap into that inner Verne we all have, maybe that's how we solve the problems we're facing. I mean, he imagined things that seemed impossible, and look, some of them came true.
It makes you think, for sure. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Jules Verne, I hope you're leaving with some of that same wonder, that same sense of possibility.
Don't stop exploring. Don't stop asking questions. Keep that Vernean spirit alive.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep diving deeper.